Hello again, soul friends and soul family, and all of our spiritual, soulful, patriotic homies out there in internet land. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Inspired Sovereignty Radio. Hey, Kimberly, I'm Ivy. How you doing, Kimberly?
Oh, I'm awesome. I'm super excited about this episode.
Oh, guys, we're so happy to be back here. We are getting in our groove now that summertime's here. We all know it's going to be a hot summer, but we've got some hot content for your mind today. And of course, your mind and your heart, but especially your mind. So everybody, welcome back to the show.
Right? Yeah, welcome back.
Yeah. So we're in what, episode number 2 of us doing now that we're both fully doing this as our full-time thing together, and everything's feeling great. So thank you for everybody that has been here with us and continues to be here with us. We've got such good conversations coming up, and today is such a necessary one for all of us at any stage of awakening that we're at, because we are all being continually harassed energetically, electromagnetically, by some crazy shit that none of us have any idea about, but it massively impacts every single one of us on all levels. So yeah, we've got a fun stuff for us today. And Kimberly, how about tell us, what are we talking about?
Yeah,
today this is so good.
Yeah, this is juicy stuff. This episode is about MINDLOCK. So MINDLOCK, I got this information from deepstatemapping.com. It's wonderful information, blow your mind information.
And it's kind of, if I can interject, deep state mapping for everything that's going on right now, right? Picture, big picture, not just the political stuff, not just the virus stuff, but biggest picture of globally what's really happening. Deep state mapping is basically a very brilliant human who gets a lot of downloads like this, and has truly mapped out all aspects of what's happening and created literally maps. We've got, did he do the healing map behind us?
Both of these maps.
Okay, so these maps even that we have on the wall behind it, so kind of all different sections of what's going on, literally he's created this extremely informative, comprehensive, intuitive maps. He's got to be connected to different realms to be creating this, right?
And there's several maps.
Yeah.
Several.
And so we're going to link those in the show notes for you to look at. But yeah, that these are the maps that she's talking about.
Yeah, so today we're going to talk about MINDLOCK. So kind of the social engineering of what is happening to us that's keeping us herded or keeping us low vibe or keeping us in this prison, really. Yeah. You know, we're not going to talk about solutions today. We're going to talk about what is. And so we're going to go through each of these topics, and sometimes we'll expound on them and sometimes we'll just let it lie. But you'll be able to look more into it because it'll be linked in the show notes.
Yeah. So we're going to have lots of things for you to dig through if you do want to learn more, but still everything that we're putting in this episode is so good and juicy, and it's when I started learning about this stuff, it really kind of blew my mind. But then it also gave me a big aha of that's why everybody is the way that they are. This is why we are the way that we are. This is why society is the way that it is, right? And we really start to see through that stuff.
Yeah, it's a deep programming.
Yeah,
and I'm obsessed with mind stuff anyway, the technology of our brains and our bodies and how it's all linked together. So this is something that is near and dear to my heart. It's very exposing. It's likely to be triggering.
Yeah.
Because we participate in a lot of these things.
Yes, mostly unknowingly, of course. But when we find out that these things are behind all of the other things, yeah. Okay, so if anybody's getting triggered in this episode, because again, like we just said, it's probably going to be triggering, but what are our suggestions to work through those triggers?
For me, I would say look deeper and then look at yourself and just notice how it has controlled some of your behaviors. And you know, we're going to talk about cognitive dissonance in a little while too. So that should help. Yeah. Sort of okay, this is why this is not sitting well with me, because I have this belief and they're colliding.
Yeah, exactly. And when we're triggered with this stuff, sometimes when I started learning about this stuff, I was almost upset with myself that I had been fooled for so long, or that I had been a part of it for so long. And also part of the programming that we're going to talk about today is actually like the programming that when we start learning truth or hearing things that are real, things that they've tried to hide from us, often that programming will kind of come in and try to like trigger us to kind of like shut us down and not go through and learn further. So definitely, like, if anybody is feeling triggered about any of these things today, to like lean into that, breathe into that. You know, it's totally okay to take like our belief system that we currently have right now and take it, and we can just set it aside for the next hour or so, you know, and then when we're done this podcast, pick up the beliefs again and put them back on. But at least like this conversation, definitely worth being extremely open-minded for, because you're probably going to learn a lot of stuff here with us. Yeah. So
I know I did.
Right? Right? Yeah, this stuff is just absolutely incredible. Okay, guys, so great episode that we're about to dive into. Just before we start, you guys know, I mean, a lot of you are probably listening on all of the different podcast apps, and thank you always for doing so. If you're one of the ones that is listening off of Apple Podcast, if you would give us a rating, like on the little main page of our podcast, if you can give a rating or even leave a review, that is seriously extremely helpful to the podcast to help other people find it, and then also to help other people like feel trust in what we are saying. If this is something that is helpful and useful to you, and you guys know that we are also now on YouTube, so you can like literally sit down with us, almost like you're here in the room with us, and we can chill together through these conversations. So on the Inspired Sovereignty YouTube channel, that is where this podcast is also. We will make sure that the link for that is in the show notes. And if you're watching us on YouTube, man, be a part of the fam. Come on, man. Come on, man. So please give this video a thumbs up so that we work well with the algorithm. It gets in front of the eyes and ears and hearts of more people. And if you really like these conversations, please subscribe to the channel. And also in the near future, we're going to start like a bunch of really good YouTube series where we're going to be talking about water and conscious language and talking shit, as in gut healing and body healing and everything. So great things coming on the channel. So please subscribe also. Okay, that's I think all of the housekeeping bits that need to exist today. So let's just dive right into the best stuff ever to learn about.
Right. So with MINDLOCK, we have definitions, we have lots of different things. So this is what you get when you order the sheet from Deep State Mapping.
Okay, and so maybe when editing this, I'll actually put this like up on the screen so that you guys can like seriously see it. So if you're listening on YouTube right now, you should be able to see this.
All right, so we're just, it's literally 2 columns, and they're broken into categories. So we're just going to go through one by one by one. We'll expound or not. So we'll see how it is. So obviously, the first one is propaganda.
Yes. Do y'all know that we still have a lot of propaganda happening that wasn't, it's not just like a 1940s Germany, 1930s Germany thing. That's when really propaganda really started, but...
Right, and it carries through today in this little touch on more stuff, but it's everywhere. It's on the signs when we're driving. It's at the gas station when you pump your gas.
Yeah, you mean on the stupid little TV screens?
Yeah,
because
it's
we
pumping,
need to be watching TV when we're pumping for 2 minutes?
And it's pumping information into you. So we've got, propaganda. That's probably like the most universally known mind lock protocol.
Yeah, and locking our minds. I don't know if you said this earlier in the episode or if we were talking about this right before it began, but like mind locking, like actually locking up our minds, imprisoning our minds, right? And if I can add to the propaganda thing, did you know that I think it was in 2012, Obama put through an executive order that actually made it legal for the American government to give its citizens propaganda. Did you know that? For so for mainstream media, like after World War II, it was not legal anymore to propaganda your own people. Is that propagandize? Guys, sorry, I don't know the right term. See, we should know the right term, but these are areas that have been like hidden from us to even talk about, right? But Mr. Obama, he put through a motion or an executive order that makes it now legal for them to propaganda us. So like, of course, now it's everywhere to the point where we don't even recognize it, right? We're being influenced and we don't even know.
Gosh, commercials. I mean, TV shows, commercials, just the normalizing of everything.
Oh, yeah. Oh yeah, and even including in that like the propaganda of pharmaceuticals, you know, because I believe in Canada you're not even allowed to make TV commercials for pharmaceuticals that coerce and convince somebody like, oh, you need this for your diabetes. Go ask your doctor about this new medication. Do you know what I mean?
So
like
in
even
Canada,
that is
you can't do that?
yeah,
don't
I'm
do
pretty
that?
sure no, it's not legal. No, because like so when I used to clean houses here in America for some people when I came across first, and like for elderly people, and all day on their television
Right.
during
Right.
daytime programming, it is all advertisements for pharmaceutical companies.
Right. That's why I asked, because I'm just like, I see that I don't watch
Oh,
TV, but when
you know
I'm
what I'm
at
talking about.
certain people's houses, there's a TV on, and I commercial after
Oh,
commercial.
I don't think
after
that that's
commercial.
legal in Canada. Because I remember when I came
wild.
here, I was like, they're just convincing all of these elderly people all day long that they need all of these medications, you know? And this medication might even cause loss of consciousness or death, you know? And then, but you know, it's like, let's just say it in a way that people's minds won't even catch it, right?
Right.
But propaganda is propaganda.
Propaganda. Yeah.
Don't fall for it.
The thing about this list too is not just triggering, but part of it is, for me, it's like angering in a way. It's like those SOBs.
Yeah. Well, what part of it is angering for you?
It's just like, how can you not how can you? It's like, look what they are doing to us. Look, I mean, this is it right here. I mean, that's the first word in the list. I mean, we've got so many more, but it's like, look at what they're doing. This is why we're exposing this today.
Yeah.
This is why we're doing this episode.
Yeah, because really, like the exposure of it, like as soon as you all learn about this, if this isn't yet on your radar, as soon as you know about it, then it stops being so effective.
Right.
So that's why like us talking about it is so good. And we're going to try to talk about this stuff in a way that's available for everybody, always, like whatever stage of your awakening that you're at, you know. And also, if you've got questions and if you're on YouTube with us, put them in the show notes so that we can actually like create conversation around this and see if there's necessary further conversations.
Right, right. Because we definitely are here to help. That's what we want to do.
Yeah.
Okay, the next one is Mockingbird Media. So Mockingbird Media, if you you can follow hashtags for these words too. So if you follow hashtags for these words that were thrown out there, you're going to find a lot of information too. So Mockingbird Media is where all of the news media, especially the higher up news media, but also the local news, they say the same thing across the board, and they say it multiple times. So if you'll hear, last night the skunk did this or whatever. Last night the skunk did this. Last night the skunk did this. And they're all saying the same thing. And it is almost exactly verbatim. Yeah. It's scripted.
Yeah, like literally, I believe most of the news stations actually get a script at 4 a.m. every day, right? And it's kind of like sometimes just paraphrased, but normally there's the exact same chunks, right? Yep. So with your background in hypnotherapy, why does it work? How does it work?
It works because it's repetitive. It works because you're sitting in front of a television or in your car, or even on your phone, in a highly suggestible state. So you're typically on autopilot when you're in those situations, and that puts you in a highly suggestible state. So you hear it over and over in a way that is convincing.
Oh yeah. And then you'll also probably think about, like, when I hear it again and again and again, I listen to like the tone that they use and the word choice that they use. And for me, what really gets me about the Mockingbird Media is that, like, they're always, how would I explain that? Like, it's always so fearful. It's always so stressful. Like, even the word choice that they use, like, they should be coming from a place of neutrality, being like, this happened and then this happened, you know?
No, but if they're inciting feelings around it, then that gets it in deeper.
Why?
Because your subconscious mind just grabs a hold of it. And then too, because your subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between what is real and what you're imagining, it just automatically thinks everything is real.
Isn't that incredible?
It's wild.
Yeah, and also though, when we're afraid, being fearful, that works differently in the subconscious mind, right? because then we're more like in that instinctual place. Is that right?
Fight, flight.
Right. And then when we're in that space, when we've got like more adrenaline going through the body, because every time you turn on the news, it's like, oh my God, this, and oh my God, this, and this is happening. And but always think from a place of, it always reminds me of like teenage girls from high school. You know what I mean? Like it's so slanted in a way that to me adults won't slant things.
Yeah.
But yeah, all of the fear, and then we just don't think things through. You know?
Right.
Yeah. So really, like every aspect of how the media does what they do, it's all intentional, isn't it?
It is all intentional.
From the repetition,
and the
vocabulary,
vocabulary.
It's horrible. Is everybody seeing that yet?
Right.
Like even I don't really watch news, but even you listen to NPR sometimes, right? And
Just
I don't even really know what NPR is.
National Public Radio.
Yeah, but
Well, so NPR is mostly news, but it's so slanted. It's so slanted, and for instance, they'll have a story, and I'll give an exact instance. So they had a story about the jab, and they use the words like, in the long-term studies. I'm like, what long-term studies? But because they say it,
yeah.
and because you're in a highly suggestible state, and you're so curious, and you're so fearful of what's going on around the spiky ball, you're clinging to that long-term studies. Okay, everything's fine.
Yeah, because there's long-term studies. There's none, guys. Not one.
There can't be.
Well, sorry, there is, and it's the people. The people right now. Yeah. Okay, so propaganda, obviously main tool or
and Mockingbird Media.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Next is MK Ultra. Now this I find really, really interesting because I read that book, Transformation of America by Kathy O'Brien, and she was, well, I mean, people say MK Ultra'd, or she was in that program. So it's along the same lines as just the repetitive, but it is also coupled with trauma and can be coupled with like shocking somebody, like
shock
physically,
therapy?
like physically shocking them.
Yeah.
She speaks a lot about that, sexual traumas. So it embeds things in people. And I mean, I'm like looking for the right thing to say here because I don't want to be, well, I'm just going to be exposing. So, you know, like in the music industry, MK Ultra is huge. And in fact, she was part of the music industry in the country music industry.
Okay.
So the country music industry was a front for some governmental things.
Yeah.
Probably still is.
Oh, for sure.
And then the Disney kids, MK Ultra.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And then I've even heard people say, you know, we're carrying around an MK Ultra device, our phones, because it's constantly programming us.
Oh, you're so right. Oh, you're so right.
And shocking us. Not physically shocking us. Well, kind of.
I mean, well, yeah, when we think of like the radiation and everything
Right.
that comes off of them, but okay. Yeah, so MK Ultra, I believe was started to be created, I think in the 60s as like a covert, I think CIA project.
It was CIA.
Right, where they would utilize everything from like LSD, I think, an acid to try to like influence people's minds to different type of psychoactive drugs, to, like you said, shock therapy, and all the abuse and everything. But then, so we're seeing that with celebrities, with music people, with Hollywood, with all the Disney kids. Like they do this to like often from a young age, right? From a place, and then they kind of rear them so that these will be the people in society that we look up to. Like these will be the celebrities, but it's safe for them to choose these celebrities because they know already that they've broken their minds, that these people are basically hollow shells and completely controllable, and they've got their handlers too, right?
Yep.
And also, if you ever see like those videos on YouTube of like MK Ultra glitches, where you see the people that have been programmed, like whether is it Cardi B, to like some basketball players, to like to the people that we're talking about, where you actually see them like glitch or go like totally blank. Like even Eminem, you've seen this happen, like just some crazy stuff. So definitely amazing rabbit hole if you want to travel down it.
Yeah, that was one of my first rabbit holes.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, it's such a weird one, right?
Yeah, because I read that book, and that book, it was a very, very difficult read, but it is a really important read. I think.
Difficult to understand, or
No,
like
it's not difficult to
difficult
understand.
in discomfort.
Discomfort.
Okay.
So much. It's such a difficult read.
Shoot,
It's
okay.
like nauseating. Yeah.
And it will be linked in the show notes if you guys want.
It's good,
Yeah.
but gross all at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, you know, we're in the days where it's important for us to have the eyes to see and the hearts to know. But, you know, it's important that you understand this stuff. And maybe listening to this podcast is enough of an understanding, you know, but for you to know that there is more, and you don't need to dig deeper, but there's stuff there if you want to.
If you want to.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I find it so fascinating just because of how everything is so connected, from our mind to our bodies, and how we are in society, how we are in our own lives, and how all of this stuff has an impact.
Oh, yeah.
All of this stuff has an impact, and it's meant to.
And it's not like it just has an impact. It's all impacting us constantly and has our entire lives, right? When you start realizing that, it's like we've all been influenced to all of this, and how is it affecting us? You know, none of us ever look at, like, how am I being influenced by all of this stuff, right? Okay, so what's next?
Repetitive trauma. So I'm not really sure what to say about that, other than there, you know, that can go hand in hand with the Mockingbird media. So that fear-based stuff. And then two, a lot of us collectively have experienced the same traumas multiple times. You know, speaking as a woman, you know, I've had multiple traumas. So I, you know, to me, that's part of it, you know, because it's sort of like, it's not sort of like, it is like a collective trauma. The sexual traumas are definitely a collective trauma.
Like the sexual misery program, which we'll definitely go into in another episode.
Yeah. So repetitive trauma keeps us locked, keeps us in fight flight. So that's a locking mechanism.
And also, like, when we've been repeatedly traumatized in different ways, you know, whether it's by the IRS, whether it's by, like, horror movies,
Right.
whether it's by the rape culture or all of these things, I feel like it puts us also, like, into a place in our nervous system where it's very easy for us to be re-traumatized. Does
Right.
that make sense?
Mhm.
But I guess that's part of the programming, right?
That is.
Yeah. Okay, so
And
movies.
And then the next one is programming.
Oh, okay. I was thinking that was one thing, like it's repetitive trauma programming. Okay, no, you're right.
Maybe.
I mean, either way, all the same, right?
Right.
Programming.
So programming. So if you think about your television program,
Your television?
yes,
Mm.
your radio program, so your frequency programming. So the programming is in so much. So that's an insidious thing. And it kind of, you know, it pulls in all those other things we just talked about, but program, school, program, certification, program,
Oh, you're
college,
right.
program.
Huh. Eritin, right? Everything.
Isn't that wild?
Yeah.
Because when you are in school being programmed to be a psychotherapist or, you know, a yoga teacher or whatever, you're being programmed. That's a programming.
How different is it than in the Matrix when they plug the thing into the back of Neo's neck, right? Or into his brain to program him. This is just a slower version that
Yes.
takes our effort to sometimes learn it, but it's also a subconscious thing, right?
Yes.
Oh, it's so crazy. Oh, it's so crazy how much programming there is.
I know.
Like, even, like when you used to go to the TV guide, when it would come in the paper, and it's like, what TV program do you want to watch? What do you want to program ourselves with today?
Right.
Right?
And like you said, the word television.
Yeah.
That's on purpose.
Yeah, guys.
It's right in front of our faces.
And that's how we know that we're in the Great Awakening, is because, like, all of this stuff has been right in front of our noses this entire time. And it's only like now that we're all like, holy shit.
Mm-hmm.
We were so gullible.
Mm-hmm.
We were so gullible. But, at the expansion of consciousness, we're going to, sooner or later, we see the stuff. And now we're all finally seeing the stuff.
Right.
Yeah. Whew.
It's big.
It is big.
Yeah.
It's really big.
Mm-hmm.
What's next?
Movies, television, news,
Yeah.
which we kind of covered. But the thing about movies and even television, fictional television, and the news, excuse me, there's predictive programming involved.
Explain that.
So predictive programming is sort of like how they put it out there ahead of time, and then it makes us believe, oh well, that was just in a movie, that can't really happen. And then some of that stuff happens, or is it really that far fetched?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, look at *Handmaid's Tale*. So
I've never seen it.
Oh my god!
I don't want to see
It's
it.
going to stress you out.
Yeah.
if you
No
watch it.
thanks. Thanks.
So
no thanks.
the thing about it is, it's kind of like that predictive programming, and a lot of people look at that and they go, "This could really happen. This could really happen." But because it's on television, it takes away our belief that it really could happen. You know,
Okay.
because it dumbs it down for us.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is just a fictional thing on TV.
Yeah. When in a lot of ways through the movies, they're showing us what they have been doing, what they are doing,
Yep.
and what they're planning
Yep.
on doing. But
And-
we're like, it's just a movie.
Right. And in fact, the movies are the main way, from what I understand, the movies are the main way to tell us, because darkness has to expose itself.
This is one of the rules about it, guys.
Yes.
Say that one more time.
Darkness has to expose itself, so it uses movies to do that.
And why it has to expose itself, it's like, you know, we all have spiritual rules
Yep.
within this dimension, within this reality, and that is one rule that the darkness actually has to abide by, so they always tell us.
And so much is in plain sight anyway. But because we're blind to it, because this is why we're doing this episode, because we're blind to it, because we're just not aware of it. I don't want to say we're blind to it. We're just not aware of it yet. Some people.
Yeah.
This will start to, like, you'll go to watch a movie and you go, holy crap. You know?
Oh, for sure. Oh, and if I can add one thing onto the movie part, where it's like, oh, that can't happen because that's just a movie. In my experience from watching, oh my God, like The Walking Dead, to some of like the apocalyptic movies and stuff, from the predictive programming angle of it, for me, in my own experience, I kind of more interpret that to, oh God, how do I put this? Like during these days, I almost keep having like what we call mind slides, where it's kind of like images coming into your mind that they're not really like organically yours. Like I feel like what my subconscious has gotten through those movies, like just in these times, like I keep imagining us moving into an Armageddon thing. I keep imagining myself kind of being like in a Walking Dead situation where like I am fighting off types of humans, like everything has gone to shit. Like for some reason, like I keep like something, I don't keep thinking this. That's not what my heart thinks or what my mind thinks. But these images and ideas, things that I have seen in movies over the last 15 years, during this time, it's like they keep trying to come in to show me what's going to happen. But it feels like completely inorganic, like it's something kind of wanting to make me feel completely hopeless, wanting me to just lay down and give up and not fight for humanity, but just roll over and just take it because does that make sense? Like I feel like that's one way that it has affected me for sure. I haven't learned about it affecting people in that way, but like that's how I interpret it, that I keep just, you know, feeling like, oh God, it's almost the end.
Right.
When it's like, that's not really what this is, but I feel like it's, I think energetic synthesis calls it the Armageddon programming. Yeah. But
Wow.
I don't know. Do you feel that way at all? Or you don't have those images come into your mind?
Well, when you were talking about that, it reminded me about just images in general that are put in our minds, that are like from horror movies and stuff like that, that are, they're not edifying you in any way. In fact, that is part of the trauma. I don't know. I really hadn't thought of it that way until you said that. I mean, my stuff that creeps in is a little bit different, and it's because of my trauma.
Yeah.
And my belief that anything can happen, because I've been hit by 2 tornadoes. So I have sort of the same, so I have this irrational stuff, which I'm sure came from seeing television shows and movies, you know, some news. So this irrational stuff that just pops into my head keeps me awake and keeps me in a panic.
Yeah.
You know, so I imagine that's probably the same type of deal.
Okay, like where those, and maybe you guys also like if both of us experience some form of that, understanding that it is the mind lock programming, or that it is imprisoning our minds, right? Then this has got to be happening for other people too, where you have like images or sounds, sentences, things like that come into your mind that it's like they're not organically yours. You know, and to start actually recognizing, right? Like in those fearful states, you're starting to recognize that, is this actually me?
Right.
Right?
Well, because first of all, it's not happening.
No.
So it's an imagined thing.
Completely. But your
Yeah.
whole chemistry and everything changes, right? And
Right.
that's just it, guys. It's like the whole body's chemistry changes.
Yep.
When we're thinking those things.
Yeah, you're totally affected by your thoughts. And we're going to talk about that more later.
Yeah.
But I mean, like you're so affected by everything that you think, and you affect others by what you say.
Yeah.
So, and if you think about when you're fearful, like for instance, for me, when I have those thoughts,
Mm-hmm.
I get like that white hot feeling in my stomach.
Oh, it's in your stomach.
Mhm.
Okay.
And then my shoulders go up around my ears. I'm laying down and my shoulders are still up around my ears. So my whole body gets tight.
Okay.
Fight, flight.
Right? Oh,
Stuck in it.
exactly. And that's probably, it's going to always probably feel a little bit different for all of us. I so more feel it like in a contraction in my heart and in my thymus gland and like almost in the back of my lungs. And it feels like a fear and a deep anxiety, but also like a deep grief. Like I'm already aware of humanity losing the battle. Like I'm already aware of our annihilation. When it's like, but that's not what's happening. But why do I have that in my head? I didn't put it in my head.
Right.
You know? Yeah. Those mothers are gross. Those people. That was air quotes for anybody listening. We're not sure if they're all people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pop music.
Pop music and earworms. So, pop music. Number one thing about pop music, the frequency.
Go on.
So the frequency at which it comes at you, and the electronic frequency, the sound frequency rather, that has an impact on your body as well. So, but then it sounds so great because they repeat the same thing over and over again. It catches you and it gets stuck in your brain. I mean, I can't imagine anybody not having an experience of a song coming in their head. Why is that song in my head? You know, and it gets stuck in your head and stuck in your head. So that's an earworm.
Yeah. Oh, that's so insane. So like, yeah, guys, what we listen to matters. We do not need to be listening to murdery music. We do not need to be listening to whorish music, that WAP music, right? Like that's, and there's also the part about music of, you know, the 432 hertz. Right? So we want to be listening to things that are organically 432 hertz because that is where music is actually supposed to be. I can't speak so fully to that at all, but that's like the organic tones of what our bodies and ears and everything like vibe with really, really well. So understanding that, like decades ago, they distorted music and had everything playing now at a different hertz. And so you can actually go onto like YouTube and find full tracks and like symphonies and orchestral music and binaural beats and everything that are at the 432 hertz, which is way better to listen to if you want to start like reprogramming the stuff. Yeah.
Video games.
Oh God, you go with that one. God.
So video games are a simulation, right? They're a simulation of whatever. It might be racing, it might be shooting, it might be zombies. It's so many things. Same thing it's like being in the movie. So you're more immersed.
Yeah, you're more active in it.
Right.
You're participating in it. You're
Right.
killing as much as you can often in it.
So in that's a desensitization tool. So yeah, and one thing about video games too is it's introducing transhumanism. So there's a lot of upgrades to your body, you know, attachments you can get,
multiple lives, like in that
multiple
same
lives.
way, right?
Yeah. So video games.
That's so interesting. I didn't think about the transhumanist part about it. That was so interesting, guys.
Well, movies too.
Oh, you're right. Oh, you're right. Okay, so then, right, also through what they're showing us the melding all the time of humans with AI.
And glamorizing it.
Oh, yeah. Even sexualizing it.
Making it cool.
Yeah, making it hot. Hot, those human bots, But guys, that isn't what we want.
No, and it does, I understand that it appeals to some people. Like there's like, oh, wow, this is really cool.
Yeah.
I can
it's
do this.
futuristic.
Yeah, it's futuristic. But it's inorganic and it changes you as a human being. It's not part of the way you were made. And so how is that impacting your soul? How is that impacting your mind? If you're letting that inorganic stuff be a part of you.
Exactly.
Thoughts to ponder.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. These next three are pretty easy to understand, but technology addiction. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean,
does it need explaining?
Right?
Like our phones are part of us, everything.
Yep. Social media. Gosh. I mean, social media has been a platform for my awakening. This is how I found what I found. So yay that we can utilize it in that way, but also it is utilized in a way that is for the darkness so much of the time. Comparison.
Oh my God, comparison. Oh yeah.
And the lies of the post. And by that I'm saying, we only show a certain part of ourselves.
Yeah.
And so of course that's going to trigger maybe somebody to feel inadequate the comparison dramas and stuff.
And especially with that we can go and through the Facetune app or whatever, we can change everything about our bodies. We can create this artificial version of ourselves that other people see, because often our communities are primarily online, right? And then we literally start living a completely different, not a different life, but where we're embodying online something that isn't us and isn't real.
Or it's a fraction of us even.
Yeah. Oh, but then what happens when you start getting praise and attention and different forms of attention from being the version of you that isn't even you, right? It's all.
And that is a dopamine hit.
Yeah.
And then you get addicted to the dopamine hit.
Yeah.
And so then you keep doing it. It's a vicious cycle. It's a vicious cycle that they put you in.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that the way we scroll, the physical aspect of it, has something to do with it. Because what I've noticed with myself is the way it feels. Sometimes I would just rub my thumb around on my phone, just the way my nail clicks on it. So there's an addiction I've noticed for me, a physical addiction.
That's so interesting. And when you're explaining that, I'm just wondering, because it's we're all staring in one thing, in one direction. And have you ever heard that even where your eyes are pointing, you access different parts of your brain?
Right.
Right? And so if we're all kind of taking this same posture with our head down, with, the back of our skull exposed, and then just with that swipe of the thumb and the swipe of the thumb and the swipe of the thumb and the swipe, does that do something like that? Are you talking about that repetitive nature? Is this actually a hypnotizing act for us?
Well, it's got to be. It's got to be.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh, it's so weird.
Yeah.
So interesting. Okay, so we've got our technology addiction and our social media addiction and artificial intelligence. And I hope none of these words are going to get us censored for anything. So guys, we're doing the best we can. But AI mediated interaction. And anytime that we say AI, for the people that are newer to the stuff, it's artificial intelligence.
Oh gosh, what this reminded me of is there's certain when you go and you're purchasing something and it has an auto chat.
Oh yeah, where you can ask Molly a question right now.
It gives you 3 option questions and you click on one, and then it's an answer they already have in there. It has nothing to do with you.
No,
personally.
They're just bots, kind of. Yeah.
So that was one thing that I thought of when I was looking at that. And then another thing is there's even banks that you go up and you're going up to a screen and there might be a real person. I'm not sure if they're a real person behind that screen or on that screen, but you're doing banking with this screen, not a human being.
Weird.
Yeah.
Weird.
There's a bank here in town that does that.
Oh, that's so weird.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's uncomfortable weird. Well, and with AI mediated interaction, like that the artificial intelligence is mediating the interaction, that actually makes me also think of all the censorship right now.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because it's like, oh, well, I posted something that Instagram didn't like again, so here is their AI telling me or warning me about my actions,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's like that AI, it's mediating my ability to interact within this stuff too.
Mm-hmm. And it's putting those little banners on your post.
Because that's not us interfacing with a real person over at Instagram who's like, Kimberly, Ivy, we would really like you to hold off on some of this stuff, you know? Instead, it's like just the bot tells us what's what, right?
Like immediately, too.
Immediately,
So
you're
it
right.
knows immediately when you post it. There's no fact check that comes in later. This is like, I mean, you can post something about the jab, you can post something about the spike ball, and it is immediate.
Oh, you're so right.
Mm-hmm. There's no delay.
Okay, so as we're talking about all of these things, imagine none of these things existed for us to talk about. Our human reality would be so fundamentally different in every way, wouldn't it?
Right.
Right? Because right now it's like we're pointing out like the aspects that influence all of us every single hour of every single day, mostly. You know, this is stuff that we are constantly interfacing with, inorganic stuff. That's crazy.
I'm going to talk about social engineering really quick.
Oh, yeah. I think that is the perfect segue.
Yeah. Were you going to say something?
No, you're good. All you. No, you take it away, woman.
When I was doing a little bit of research on some of this stuff, I found this source called stopthecrime.net. And I'm just going to read a little bit from it, just very little, but about social engineering. The analysis and automation of a society is what social engineering is. It requires the correlation of great amounts of constantly changing economic information or data. So a high-speed computerized data processing system was necessary, which could race ahead of society and predict when society would arrive for capitulation. When I read that, I was just like, what? Like, what? There's something that is racing ahead of us?
Yeah.
Okay.
And supposedly, I think that technology can kind of like see a whole bunch of the timelines and then make the choices to make sure that we stay on this automated one or something, right?
Mm-hmm. So the paper is Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars. And then...
And sorry, like if we can just pause on that for a second, guys, of like, holy crap, like that's such a phrase that describes exactly what we're talking about, but also everything that we're going through. Silent weapons for quiet wars, right? So for everybody to remember that we are in all degrees fully at war right now. And nobody knows about it because it is a quiet war with silent weapons. This is not big battlefield stuff. This is not tanks and guns and all that. Like in some areas it is, but here for all of us, it's a silent war with quiet weapons. Or, I mean, opposite, but same thing. Same, but different.
Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars. And this was the Operations Research Technical Manual.
Oh, so that's coming out of their technical manual.
Yeah. I know.
No biggie.
There's names in it too, but I'm not going to say them. And then the next quote I wanted to pull out was, it was soon recognized by those in power that the same methods might be useful for totally controlling a society.
Totally?
Totally
Totally whatting a society?
controlling.
Oh.
I know. And so there was these tools that they had, and one was the electronic computer, because the computer was a little different before it became an electronic computer. And that was made in 1946. Then the next year was the simplex method of linear programming, which I don't really understand what that is, but that was in 1947 by the mathematician George B. Dantzig. Dantzig. And I really feel like I've seen that name somewhere.
Let me see the writing of that. Oh, okay.
I'm gonna look into it further, obviously. And then the transistor, which was invented in 1948. So this promised a great expansion of the computer field by reducing space and power requirements. That's what the transistor is for. So just those in power to use those methods to control society, totally control society.
Yeah. Yeah, that's all insane. And also to recognize that this was done, these things were initiated in the late 40s.
Isn't that wild?
So if we can all have context of, right, like, I mean, I don't know what really happened in World War II, right? And turns out that when somebody wins a war, nobody asks them if they lied about any of the details about what and what, you know? But if they had this technology, that's like 70 years ago, or, you know, around about 70 years ago. And for everybody to know that supposedly for every 1 year that our technology for like humanity advances, supposedly military technology advances 40 years. For every 1 year of advanced technology that we have. Did I explain that in a way that makes sense?
I think so. I mean, it blew my mind.
Okay, so yeah, so basically, like, you know, certain militaries around the world have technologies that we have no friggin' clue about.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a lot of the stuff that we're talking about here, but it goes so much further and beyond to places where, like, our minds would all be blown when we start talking actually about time travel, interdimensional travel, Project Looking Glass. Like, there's so many crazy gosh darn things.
Right.
Yeah, but anyways, please continue, because
Okay.
you're on an amazing roll.
Okay, now we're going to go to the next category.
Cool.
So this category is sort of the medical category. So inflammation. So how is that a mind lock? I mean, I'm thinking about it and I'm like, you know, typically when we're suffering, we're saying it many times.
Yeah.
Over and over and
Yeah.
owning our suffering.
I just want this to catch you. Good.
Thank you.
Good.
So inflammation is one of them. And I just don't even know what to say other than, you know, this is something that I've suffered from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want me to add to it?
Yes, please.
Okay, where my brain goes immediately with the inflammation is that, like, when most of us have chronic inflammation to some degree. You know, most of us have really junked up guts, which you guys know if you've listened to earlier episodes. But most of our chronic inflammation all starts with what is happening in the gut, because we have a whole bunch of debris in us. You know, we've got a whole bunch of opportunistic organisms and parasites. And one day we're going to get into another episode, and maybe I don't know if we touch on that in this, but AI parasites, like, when we have physical things in us, we also have energetic and artificial things in us. But when we have inflammation, it's kind of like a constant static in the body, a constant static within the chemistry, within the nervous system, within the brain. Because if we've got inflammation going on in the body, we're going to have inflammation in the brain. But that, to me, then leads to less critical thinking, more mood swings, more maybe irritability, agitation, more aggression, more ups, downs, more depression, more anxiety, just keeping us more in a state of like just inflamed emotion, inflamed everything. Does that make sense?
Yes. And more couch sitting, less exercise,
less wellness, less vitality, less. And when we're vital and well, that is when, what do we feel? We feel clear, we feel strong, we feel empowered, we feel our own autonomy, we have deeper connection to God and soul or source or whatever term is the term that fits good for you. Like when we're chronically inflamed, that's also means that we're chronically acidic, and that's also the perfect petri dish in our body to create disease. You know, so if they can keep us inflamed, and also to understand that, like, electromagnetic frequencies, EMFs and stuff, that type of stuff also creates inflammation. The heavy metals in the air and in the water and everything creates inflammation. So it's not just what we do to ourselves to create inflammation, but our inflammation is a symptom of this diseased world.
Right.
So the more inflamed we are, the more controlled we are. Because, like, oh, you're super inflamed. Well, go spend your time finding the right doctor. Go spend your energy finding the right medications or the right whatever. But you're going to be stuck in this downward spiral as long as you're inflamed. And it's very hard for people to become uninflamed and to become well if you're still part of this system, if you're going through mainstream, I almost said mainstream media, but also mainstream medicine, right?
Alzheimer's and dementia.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm good with leaving that there because I mean, there's a lot of belief systems around both of those. You know, there's also a lot of dehydration in both of those.
Yeah. Well, and no matter how you look at those, they're both going to be, at least in my mind, a degeneration of the nervous system and brain, you know? And also you think of like, to me, Alzheimer's and dementia, like it's very remediable in early stages. It's very optional to not have those things happen if you know how to stop them from happening. But you think also when somebody has those, what it does to a family, you know, like how hard, like that situation is extremely hard for the person being affected, but also, you know, also for everybody else.
Yeah, for sure.
That's a lot of pain.
Yeah. Yeah, I have some experience with some of that, you know, not firsthand, but secondhand experience.
Yeah. Well, what about when it comes to like ADHD and ADD and autism? What are your thoughts? Like, again, all of that should be optional for children, you know? That all never used to exist for children.
Right.
Or people.
Right. And so I don't even know where to go with that I don't have enough science behind it, but just how that is so prevalent now, so prevalent. And where does it come from? You know, where does it come from? And there's lots of theories about where it comes from. You know, we're talking about food. We're talking about
different jabs, like any of the jabs.
Yeah, that was the next thing I was going to say. For sure. Yeah.
Plus the TV programming. Plus the all of the things, all the
What
things,
about
right?
red dye.
Oh my God, yeah, yellow number 5 and red number 40, guys. Like there's so many things that contribute to that. But then also, those are mostly like things that are most effective, or like those are things that generally set in early adolescence or childhood, right? So then also understanding that the AI game is to affect our nervous system to basically become a parasite in us at the earliest age possible. Because if you've got your 4-year-old now on Prozac and a bunch of other things because we're having attention difficulties, maybe some behavioral problems, maybe because we're feeding our kids really shitty food, you know, maybe for whatever reasons. But then it's like if you get your young child medicated and onto the system and that's affecting their brain and their nervous system and everything, it's like, then how is that child or that person ever going to get off of these things?
Right.
So when they can do this at such a young age, it can really stick.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's tragic to me.
Well, it fragments the soul, guys. Like it's right. We see it sometimes as just like a medical and behavioral thing, when not seeing it like, well, what does it do to the soul?
Chronic fatigue syndrome. Another one of those things. To me, it kind of goes in hand with inflammation.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Yeah, because once then your inflammation turns into chronic fatigue syndrome.
Right.
Oh, and I was listening to some energetic synthesis earlier, which guys, we're going to link a really good energetic synthesis episode. And it's on electromagnetic frequencies and signals, and it's so important and it's so related to this conversation today. But actually, they're talking about the way that EMFs and everything will affect our body and even our adrenals, right? And that's in traditional Chinese medicine. That's really where your life force comes through. So if we can be inflamed for long enough that now it's like we technically have a syndrome of chronic fatigue and inflammation. If you know, for any of the adults listening who deal with that, it's like, you know, that feels like a life sentence. That feels like it takes away your whole reality. Like, good luck having the energy to even get out of bed, you know? So to me, when we're doing these types of medical things to people, it's like we're just rendering that incredible soul inert. You know, it's just like, okay, so that person's got chronic fatigue syndrome now, and they're chronically inflamed. It's like that light worker is kind of taken offline from being what they're available to do.
Another, fibromyalgia also to me falls into that category.
You have experience within that realm for yourself, right?
Yeah. So when I was in my early 30s, I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis and fibromyalgia. And then, so of course, I held my body a certain way. You know,
did you hold yourself like a sick person?
Like a sick person.
Okay.
You know, when I got up and all that kind of stuff. But then also just like not bending all the way over, not maneuvering my body in a functional way.
Why? Because
Because
of
it
your
hurt.
idea?
Mhm.
Okay. Did it
Because it
actually
hurt.
hurt, or
It
was
did.
it the idea of
It
hurt?
did actually hurt, but I was holding it in place with the idea that it hurt.
Okay.
Also, in my mind, that's what my belief system says. So,
Because this is what you have now. This is what you are.
right,
Right?
right. This is a part of me, right? So then, years later, 10 years later or so, I go and I get retested, and because I was getting a physical done for an adventure I was going on, and she said, you have no markers for any of those things. So then I was like, wait a minute. So it's been in my head the whole time, or it's been what I've been putting in my mouth, and it's been in my head the whole time.
When you were officially diagnosed, do you think that there was any, like, why did that doctor diagnose you then?
Probably because she couldn't figure out anything else to explain what was going on with me.
Okay. So then when you find out that it's like, genetically, you don't need to have these things. What was
Right.
that moment like?
Yeah, because they don't say, hey, it's what you're eating and what
'Cause
you're
then you
drinking.
have control.
Right. So when I realized I had total power over how I physically felt, I was like, I was like a ballerina. I mean, it was just like, whoa. You take your power back. So you can take your power back with these illnesses that we're diagnosed with, because it really starts with nutrition and your mind and stuff like that, and we hold it energetically in place. And I believe we did talk about this in the first episode, maybe the second episode, but yeah, it was like a miracle, but it was only words. You don't have any of those markers.
Yeah.
I'm in total control.
Yeah. That is so good. I've seen people on the opposite side of that also. Have you ever? Where it's like, oh, yeah, what you've got going on, actually, you know what, you could probably, like, a lot of that could shift if we changed a little bit of lifestyle stuff. You don't need to have this anymore. But, you know, some people will be like, no, this is what I have.
Right.
I'm super sick forever.
Right.
So I guess it's
Yeah.
just a
Many-
person's willingness to.
Yeah, to let go. And, you know, a lot of times you hear people say, my fibromyalgia, my chronic fatigue syndrome, my illness, blankety blank, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But people own their shit like that.
Yeah.
It can be a temporary thing. You don't have to embed it in your body.
No. Oh, no, you're so right. And it's also like, if you weren't born with it, you can heal it. But most people haven't had anybody tell them that.
Right.
Yeah.
Sleep deprivation. So sleep deprivation, I don't even know where to go with this. So some of that is stuff that we kind of do to ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
or we do to ourselves. I don't want to use a buffer word on that. And then some of it is, you know, where we live, big cities, bright lights.
I think some of it is keeping us all in like the 9 to 5 programming, keeping us busy, so that we don't have time to be like, hey, world, I'm a soul. There's more to this, right? But to keep us, I guess, too busy to even sleep properly.
And two parents being out of the home. That's another thing too.
Oh, yeah.
There's so much we could talk about.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, the mom comes home and she has to do all these things, and then the dad's doing what he's doing, and yada, yada. And it's just like, 11:30, 12 o'clock before they get to bed. And then they get back up at 6:45 the next morning, you know.
And then they're just back into the grind,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Another thing that affects sleep
Mm-hmm.
is the EMFs.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we'll get to that too, but that does have an impact on our sleep. Okay. The next, I don't know if we really have to explain too much of this, but we've got social pressures. I'm just going to go down the line, okay?
Yeah, perfect.
Fear of ridicule.
One more time. You guys know all of us as adults, sometimes it's like the words just don't come out right. But I mean, that happens.
That was ridiculous.
It was good though. It was good though. Okay, so
Fear of ridicule.
there we go.
Isolation. Fear of the unknown.
Yeah.
That's a big one. Labeling. Oh my gosh, that's happening like crazy right now. Identity politics. Creature of habit. And cognitive dissonance.
Oh man, all of that is so good. Yeah. Okay. So again, social pressures, which we have a lot of. Fear of ridicule, which a lot of people have a lot of fears about that stuff. You know.
Yeah.
But really don't, because again, everybody whoever needs to hear this right now, nobody's opinion about you is any of your business.
It's
And
not your
everybody
business.
else is worried or like busy thinking about their own insecurities and their own worries, right? So like, be you, be awesome, be real, speak your mind. Don't worry about it. You know? Now, if anybody's going to ridicule you, what does that say about them? You know? Everything's fine.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's part of the programming too, you know, because it's in TV and, you know, and then you have that like feeling when you see somebody get ridiculed. So then you're afraid of having that feeling.
Oh, totally. And then even like right now with, you know, being a social media warrior or whatever, or like a digital soldier, you know, it's like a lot of people I think are like, oh, well, if I really say what's on my mind, what are people going to think of me? I don't want to be isolated. I don't want to be ostracized from the pack, when it's like, wait, no, we all just got to be strong right now, right?
March to the beat of your own drum.
Yeah.
Be strong. I'm going to read 2 definitions of cognitive dissonance.
Yeah, and so for anybody, yeah, sorry, you go. This is perfect and important.
I'm like, which one do I want to read first? Okay. The term cognitive dissonance is used to describe the mental discomfort that results from holding 2 conflicting beliefs, values, or attitudes. People tend to seek consistency in their attitudes and perceptions, so this conflict causes feelings of unease or discomfort. That's from verywellmind.com. And then I like this other one a lot too. Cognitive disequilibrium.
Ooh.
I know.
So I'm like cognitively out of balance.
Right.
Okay.
Is a state that occurs when when people face obstacles to goals, interruptions, contradictions, incongruities, anomalies, uncertainty, and salient contrasts. That's from Psychology of Learning and Motivation.
That's really good.
I know.
To me, that one actually means something slightly different than the first one, right?
Right.
Like I've just recognized, like when I'm on a roll or I'm about to do something like work related and something interrupts me, my brain feels a little frazzled for a moment. So I guess that's what the disequilibrium is, right?
Yeah.
Versus it's not actually like, it's not the cognitive dissonance that we're talking about.
Yeah, it's a
that's
little
interesting.
bit different because it's you know, it's sort of a conflicting thing that's happening, that's like pulling our attention away from that status quo.
Yeah. Oh, that's so interesting. And cognitive dissonance comes up for us everywhere, but especially like when you're feeling triggered, that's technically what it is. Like, there's a billion great examples. But do you think we need to expand on that at all?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Okay. Nah. Okay. The next couple of lines are resistance to change, stubbornness, inability to adapt, inability to assimilate, and new programming.
I wonder if that's actually like, do they mean an inability to assimilate new programming? I mean, that could be, no, that's probably both ways again. Both ways make sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
both of them do. But these are things that are really in your control. Too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So with the resistance to change and stubbornness and the inability to adapt, those things to me all are like when the things higher up on the list have been really, really working, like the MK Ultra and the Mockingbird media and the propaganda, when those things are really, really working and doing their jobs, plus the inflammation, plus the sleep deprivation.
Fear of the unknown.
Yeah, right. Plus the fear of ridicule and everything. I think everything that we've talked about then will make a person resistance to change and stubborn.
I hear so much, because in my environment that I just came from, 31 years of retail, I hate change. I would hear so many people say that, I hate change. Well, okay, just so you know, everything's changing all the time.
So you just chose an uphill battle for the rest of life if you're going to hate change, right?
But really what it is the fear of the unknown, But yeah, so when we're resistant to change, we create those grooves in our brain that keep us stuck. So, little bits of change here and there can help you get unstuck.
And also help us become more resilient to when there's big change, like now, right?
Yeah.
For us to be able to just lean into and lean into and lean into. Who is it that says change is the only constant? Is that Einstein?
I don't know who says that, but that's the truest. So true.
Yeah.
I'm not sure who says that.
Okay, so what's our next chunk?
Oh, yeah, the next chunk. Here we go. Electromagnetic pollution. I'm going to read them all and then we'll kind of go back. Is that okay?
Perfect, yeah.
Electromagnetic pollution, power lines, Gwen towers, LED bulbs, the flicker rates, Wi-Fi, 4G, 5G, HARP installations, and satellite megaswarms. Okay, so electromagnetic pollution, you're going to speak to that, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, God, where to start? Okay, that's such a big conversation that we're going to have really rapidly here.
Right.
Okay, so what we got to know is basically the Earth, planet, she has an electromagnetic field. She basically has a pulse, the heartbeat of Earth, which is known as the Schumann resonance. But everything here on Earth, organically, is electromagnetic. So like the actual energy of everything is a mix of electricity and magnetism. So that's where we get into the masculine and the feminine, because the masculine is the electric energy, the feminine energy is magnetism. So all of our bodies and the whole earth and everything runs on this electromagnetic energy. And we are in this ascension process, which is a biological, yet also energetic, yet also spiritual process where, like the expansion of our consciousness, it's actually an organic process that happens through time. And we're the humanity that's alive and living during the time of like its greatest expansion. So that is like an electromagnetic evolution that we are going through. So basically, to counteract this, and this is why it is on this mind lock form, is that they pollute us with artificial electromagnetic frequencies. So we get this stuff off of pretty much everything, from our electronics to our phones to the lights to the power lines outside to all the big cell phone towers and 5G towers and everything. Like everything basically is giving off electromagnetic pollution. And what that does, in a nutshell, is that it interferes with our electromagnetic field, which is also kind of like when you talk about our chakras, our energy, our aura, all of that to some degree is actually talking about our electromagnetic field. So the electromagnetic pollution that they just bathe us in constantly in all different ways, unless you are living, far, far off the grid, but they still have ways to affect even those people. But basically, they are polluting us with these different forms of frequencies, from EMFs, which means electromagnetic frequencies, to also ELFs, which means extremely low frequencies. But I mean, they're both kind of within the same family of frequencies. But basically what that does is, like, if we should be resonating and vibrating and, at a frequency rate way up here, because we're aligned with the Earth's frequency, and she is expanding and changing right now. We are and should be expanding and changing with her. But if they're affecting us with all of these really, really low frequencies, that's going to start pulling our own frequency down so that we are entrained with this very low frequency. And when we're at this lower frequency, because we are being bombarded with all of this, like I said, artificial electromagnetic energy, that also then works in with all of these other things that we've been talking about, from chronic inflammation and disease states, to changing our hormones, to changing our biochemistry, to changing our brain waves, to also changing like how we interact with each other, literally how our DNA signals, like the EMFs and the ELFs, how they pollute us with these things, it's one of the highest forms of pollution that they can actually attack us with, because it literally like affects the electricity of our body, which then affects absolutely everything else. But first and foremost, what comes to mind is like the electromagnetic energy. I know I'm kind of rambling, but I'm almost done here. Is that's really like soul. That's our connection with God. Is the energy, this current of that goes through our body. And it's also really, it has to do with the hydration of our body and the quality of water that our body is truly made with as well. But that when they're affecting us with EMFs, like as much as that affects our glandular system, our reproductive systems, our brains, our chemistry and everything, it affects all of us in all of the physiological ways. But then it's also affecting us psychically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. Like truly, that's one of the most aggressive spiritual forms of pollution. Did I explain that well?
Yep.
Anything that I should expand on?
No.
Okay, so in a nutshell, the electromagnetic pollution, super, super dangerous, and it's also everywhere.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and also, P.S. And one day there's going to be an episode or something on this. You can buy an EMF reader from stores, from Amazon, whatever, and you can actually use that to find out where like the really hot zones in your house as far as EMFs and stuff goes, so that you can actually find ways to kind of protect yourself. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's most of what I have to say on that.
Yeah. And then, so that covered power lines, and then we've got Gwen towers.
Oh, yeah, and yeah, sorry, and I just wanted to touch on the power lines. Is there anything else that you
No.
want to go in on them?
No.
Okay, but
Keep
you know
going.
that like often when, I'm going, but like when people live underneath power lines, that's often when you're going to have people that have more cancers and things like that, because this stuff really, really affects us. Okay, so Gwen towers. I did a little bit of research on this before, or like earlier today. I wasn't super familiar with it, but basically it's like, we've got different EMFs that often this electromagnetic fog and pollution that they give to us, it kind of like raises into the atmosphere, off of their towers and everything, and like goes upwards. But the Gwen towers are these towers that are still like towers that I think are between 200 to 500 feet tall and spanning all across America. And they basically, they create extremely low frequencies, like ELFs are even more dangerous than EMFs as far as my understanding goes. But these ELFs, instead of going up into the atmosphere, they actually like sink in and like hug the ground where we all are. So these ELFs stay very localized to like our distance from the planet, just again to really saturate us, to disable our nervous systems, because your nervous system is how you connect to soul and God. Okay, so yeah, that was the Gwen towers. So what about the LED bulbs?
So the LED bulbs, they flicker at a certain rate, and that we don't even notice that it's happening. And I have this little small excerpt here. It says, LED lights oftentimes exhibit an invisible flicker, rapid fluctuations in brightness that occur many times per second. Because of its rapid speed, this flicker in the LED lamp may not be visible, but can have psychological and neurological effects on our bodies, such as eye strain, fatigue, headaches, and difficulty in concentration. Even invisible flicker is sometimes noticeable. You may have observed moving objects create a distinct trail or a vertical streaking line when taking photos. Both are signs of flickering light source.
That's all crazy. And so all of these things that we're talking about, it's not like these are the only ways to do things. Like, it's like none of this is necessary, but all of it they have chosen on purpose, because we've been at a war for years and years and years. This is so insane, all of this stuff. Isn't this so insane?
It's wild.
Like, because when we start going through this list, it's like we really realize that we have been groomed to lose this war for decades of grooming to get to this place. Okay, so that leads us to, Wi-Fi and 4G and 5G.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So we can put this in the show notes, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
There it is. So got front and back information. But notice right here, DNA damage.
Okay, so for people that are not watching us, we're
Oh,
looking
sorry,
at,
yeah.
oh, you're good, at a 5G radiation hazard chart. And yeah, legit damages our DNA.
Yeah, harmful effects, flu-like symptoms, suppressed immunity, confusion, slurred speech, muscle twitching, extreme fatigue, migraines, ear ringing, long-term effects, which you spoke to, cancer, DNA damage, dementia, premature aging, miscarriage, birth defects, and transhumanism.
Oh, yeah. So, and guys, like they've got these towers up most everywhere. At least I know in the city that we're living in, these towers are everywhere. There's one like, what, a mile from us right now. So, yeah, and I know that there's a lot of talk that possibly the 5G towers might be turned into Tesla towers, that there might be a way to actually neutralize the 5G radiation and actually make it beneficial, but that's not my wheelhouse. So, I mean, hopefully good things, but
Right.
but who knows? But as it is right now, very, very dangerous.
HAARP installations. Do you know that much about that?
HARP?
Yeah.
Oh, I know about
Okay.
HARP.
Okay, good. Because
Okay.
I have something on here, but I don't think it's very understandable.
Okay. Do you want to share it anyways?
You share and I'll look at it while you're
Okay,
doing
that sounds good. Okay, so guys, HARP, I started learning about HARP probably close to 10 years ago. There's certain locations where the HARP setup is set up. And HARP, it's very interesting to look at. I'll see what I can find to link into the show notes, but it's basically where they have technology that's almost like ultrasonic that they can use to modify weather.
Oh, yeah.
So that they can actually control the weather, control what's happening. They can manufacture storms, they can manufacture hurricanes, they can manufacture natural disasters, and they do this from these HARP locations, basically from sending radio waves or ultrasonic waves of types into our atmosphere. They seed clouds, like they just do a whole bunch of crazy things so that they can literally, oh, we want to create an earthquake in Haiti. Oh, we want to create an ice storm in Texas. You know, like, oh, we're going to create all of these wildfires right now in Alberta and British Columbia, and the fires have all of these clouds coming off of them, and these clouds are full of lightning, even though they're like fire clouds. You know what I mean? Just like crazy stuff. Yeah, HARP. What did you find on it, or what have you read?
I mean,
kind of same
very
thing?
high frequency. But I remember learning about how they started using that in the Vietnam War. Like
They started using
weather.
HARP?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I thought that HARP was more like last 10, 20 years, but maybe it goes back into the 60s and 70s, right? And again, right, like we don't know how long they've been using this technology. We don't even know what Earth's what Earth's weather should be like. Like you think here, it's like, certain parts of America get hurricanes every year, right? West Coast, huge fires every single year. What if even how we interpret weather, like I'm talking North America specifically, what if how we interpret weather is not actually how it organically is at all?
Right.
What if we don't actually need to be bracing for different forms of natural catastrophe every year?
Mm-hmm.
Seriously, what if even like your tornadoes?
Right.
You don't know.
I
Not
know.
your tornadoes, but
I did name the first one, so Tornado Joe. So yeah, so interesting.
It's so interesting.
Yeah, satellite megaswarms.
I don't know about that.
Okay, I discovered this accidentally with an app that I have called the Night Sky, and you can go in and
I
you
have
can
that.
so you can face it wherever, and it shows you the constellations, the planets, and it shows you the satellites that are in that area. And one day I was looking at it and I saw like all these little blue checks, blue, like a ton. Come to find out, they're just a bunch of junk satellites hanging out in that area.
Really?
Hundreds.
That's so weird. And satellites aren't actually orbiting us, right? Isn't it that they're actually put up there with balloons? Have you seen that? That they're actually just floating on balloons up there because our atmosphere is not what we've been told. Plus, like possibly like the firmament and stuff.
I don't know that much about it, but I do know that somebody told me, okay, it's like the battery runs out, so they just send another one up there. But I mean, there's so many in this one spot, but all over. I mean, it's not one spot of so many. There's so many spots of so many in one spot.
So then when it comes to this list, like how is that against us? How is it harming us? Like why is satellite swarms, mega swarms, why is that on the list?
I mean, could it be blocking out something that should be like
Or
maybe
emitting
sunlight
something to us?
or emitting? It could be emitting. It could be because, you know, the signal goes up and the signal bounces back. I don't really know. Could it be watching us?
I mean, possibly.
Could it be also, like I said, like blocking some sort of starlight, sunlight,
Yeah.
moonlight? I don't know.
So if anybody listening, if you know, get into the comments of the YouTube video and like, yeah, help us out. Let us know what that is about. Because I mean, obviously it can't be good, but I really want to understand more.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, on to the next chunk. Go for it.
Ready? I'm just going to read them all this time. Poisoning, which we've talked about many times. Vaccination, do I want to say that word?
No,
A bunch of jabs and
the
shots of
waxy.
things.
Yeah, I don't even know what to call
Maxine?
it. The Maxine.
Maxine. Encephalitis, which, and I looked, but prescription fog, chemtrail inhalation, which you spoke to a little bit, you alluded to it, water fluoridation, toxic additives, cancer viruses, alcohol, spirits, and GMO food.
You guys see how many different angles they have spent, how many billions of dollars to develop after over how many decades to get us to this point, right? Like to really see, it's like they knew that this time on planet Earth of humanity is starting to ascend and humanity really taking their power back, like that they have spent so much time building all of this. That drives me crazy. You know,
Right.
like when you really think of it, how prepared they were for this time. What do you want to speak to with that?
I mean, do we need to? I don't know. I mean, we can.
Well, I mean, okay, so everybody knows that we're being poisoned in all ways through all things, right? And that jabby things in us, whether it's this specific one we're talking about going around right now, or, you know, the 49 different jabs that children get in their first 2 years.
Which can cause encephalitis.
Yes, and so talking about encephalitis, it's, you know, it's brain inflammation, it's swelling of the brain, and where do you go from there? You know, and especially when this happens young, how do you recover?
How do you even communicate that
Well, you act
as a baby? You know?
you act like a baby with encephalitis,
Yeah,
right?
you
You
cry,
cry,
you
you
scream.
scream. So, yeah. Oh God, prescription fog. I see this. I see this a lot, even, you know, in family and stuff sometimes. It's like when we're on, you know, a lot of people are on a lot of different medications. You know, your average senior, I think, is on often like 12 medications. I just pulled that number out of my butt, but I'm pretty sure it's something like that, though. No, really, though. And so, you know, when you're on all of these different drugs and they're mixing up, it's like it creates a complete fog in you because you're on all of these artificial things.
And often they're counteracting each other and
they
having
all-
an impact on each other.
Oh, yeah. And they all do more than just what they say they do, you know?
And they dehydrate you.
Oh, yeah, and they
Hello.
dehydrate you.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Speaking
So,
of dehydration.
yeah, drink that water. Drink that structured water, girl. Yeah, so poisoning, the jabs, encephalitis, your prescription fog. Okay, and the chemtrail inhalation, and I see them all the time going all over the place.
Right.
So, right, when you see the long clouds that they look like the vapor trails of planes, but they last so long, they're actually, like, those are heavy metals. Those are heavy metals and other things that they're spraying on us. So when those settle onto our ground, settle onto our into our crops, and we, you know, they come into our homes, we're outside breathing them. But what happens is that often they're putting ingredients in those chemtrails that actually will interact with heavy metals inside the jabs as well, so that they're using these different techniques of poison to interact with each other, because then you can make it all far more potent and make it work even better to keep us all asleep and unwell.
We talked a little bit about toxic additives, like some of the food additives, the colors, the dyes.
Oh, yeah.
And then just all those things that you can't pronounce.
Oh, yeah.
There's a reason.
And there's a really good app for your phone. It's called Chemical Maze. Best app that I've ever found for that type of stuff. So, you know, when I'm shopping, whether it's for skincare stuff or food stuff, anything that you don't understand what the word is, pull up Chemical Maze, and it's going to let you know really well, like if it's safe, if it's dangerous, what it's used in, yada yada. So that was a resource that I've used for about a decade, and it's amazing. Okay, and so with the water fluoridation, everybody hopefully knows by now that, I mean, you probably have all heard me talk about it a bunch of times over the last couple of years, that that was actually a Hitler experiment, a social experiment, because when we have fluoride, it calcifies the pineal gland, your pineal gland being, you know, one of your top chakras that is about conscious thought and open-mindedness and, you know, being in control of yourself. And instead, when we're drinking the fluoride, we become more docile and more submissive. So and also, like, if any of the stuff that we're if any of the stuff that we're talking about is triggering, first and foremost, are you drinking fluoridated water? If you are, my dear friend, our dear friends, it is time to shift that to a better option. Don't poison yourself anymore.
And so when those things are blocked off, like, you know, when you're blocked here or you're blocked, we tend to live in these lower parts of our chakras. So we get stuck in that safety,
Yeah.
sexual misery,
Yeah.
lack of power.
Totally.
Those bottom three chakras.
Oh, no, and also, though, when we're stuck in those bottom three chakras, we might be actually interpreting it as like sexual lust. We might not be interpreting it as misery. We might be interpreting it as like, I've got all this power and all this greed, right? Or whatever. But yeah, we start living in those, like, those lower dimensions of us. Okay, that takes us to toxic additives. Anything to add with that? Guys, there's toxic additives in everything. Everything. So, and also, all of this is more reason to keep our bodies cleaned out. Cancer viruses.
I don't know what to say about that, other than I learned yesterday that cancer is a parasite.
Yeah, right? There's so much to this stuff that we don't actually know yet. But what we've been told isn't right. Yeah. Alcohol and spirits?
Alcohol and spirits. So there was a book that I read called Spirit Hacking by Shaman Durek, and it talks about alcohol and why it was put in place to stymie us and keep us. And the reason why it's called spirits is because you're drinking like a spirit, like a dark spirit. Because, you know, if you think about what it does to you, how it dulls your senses and it makes you susceptible and sometimes funny, sometimes stupid, you know. I mean, just these things, this impact that alcohol has on you dehydrates your system. Yeah. It's not good.
No. So, yeah, I don't think we need to even say more on that, right? But yeah, right, it's like we all understand what alcoholism does to people, but also to the soul, that it's a really serious situation.
It really is serious.
And it's very, very unfortunate that alcohol was made legal and that more healthful things were not, you know?
I know.
Yeah, you know?
I mean, what does that tell you right there?
Oh, exactly. Let's make the one that expands consciousness illegal.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just going to add this.
Yeah.
So one of the things I learned about the MK Ultra is they used all those, you know, those chemical drugs, right?
What do you mean? Which type of chemical drugs?
Like LSD,
Okay.
alcohol, those type of things. They never used cannabis on purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Okay. Really?
just a little talking point. No cannabis.
I wonder for the people that are still a part of MK Ultra who have handlers, I wonder if even, like, let's say that they live in states where marijuana is legal, I wonder if they're ever allowed to participate in marijuana. Or maybe if the soul is so fractured and the person is so controlled that maybe at that point it doesn't even matter.
I don't know.
I wonder.
Yeah. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Genetically modified food.
Well, if you eat GMO things, you become consubstantial with it, which means it becomes you, and then you're GMO'd. Is that the simplest form of that conversation?
Perfect.
Okay.
Okay, the next category is really interesting to me. So insubordination, punishment, electronic harassment, voice to skull, and frequency torture. We're going to talk a little bit about some of these things, but when I look at insubordination and punishment, it's just like, you know, the judicial system, the rules that are put in place. You know, if you don't do it correctly, then you'll be punished. So that's just what I look at it. So it's like an effect of you not following the norm, following the narrative.
Okay, I hear. And also probably like taking orders when you work for those established things, right? Like there's no way that you're allowed to probably question. Or...
And the punishment. And look at the you know, incarcerations for some of it's just, I mean, it just doesn't make sense. Some of the reasons why people are jailed, and then some of the people that are not jailed.
Oh,
So
the hypocrisy, right? And with the insubordination and the punishment, that even makes me think of like all the doctors, like the good doctors right now that are really speaking out, and they're losing their jobs, and they're losing their license, and you know, everything is just gone, just for truth, just for freedom of speech, right?
Right.
Yeah. Electronic harassment.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
This is. Can you talk about what's going on with Mr. T on that?
Oh, what would I say about Mr. T with that?
What, just the class action?
Oh, I wasn't thinking of that as electronic harassment. Okay.
But we are being.
Yeah, it is harassment, and it is electronic. Okay, so as far as the censorship goes right now, guys, it's like you probably all know that, especially since the whole thing started last March, that for all the people that are speaking truth, who are sharing data and information in peer-reviewed studies, like people that are just sharing real information, right, are getting silenced, censored, deplatformed, disabled, yada, yada, yada. And so there is... 2 days ago, it was finally announced that there is going to be, or there is starting a class action lawsuit.
Oh my gosh. I know.
Yeah. I told y'all it would
So
come.
exciting.
Yeah. So with that, really good things hopefully coming. But that means I've read already that hopefully all of us that have been deplatformed, I think I'm on account number 7 right now, that all of our accounts might be restored. And then hopefully there is also some type of monetary situation so that we can bleed big tech dry. So that they, and like number 17 has said, is that that big tech and like mainstream media will basically crumble due to the weight of its own like legal situation, which, because we're entering right now probably the largest class action that has ever existed on the planet, which is so exciting.
It's so exciting.
Right? You're as excited as I am?
I was like going crazy excited when I was seeing the stuff last night. I was just like, I mean, you probably haven't checked your DMs yet, but I was like,
haven't.
yeah, like everything that was coming up. I was just like, oh my gosh, it's so, it's thrilling.
Yeah. I mean, for those of us that have been electronically harassed, and I mean, there's so many, probably a good 500,000 people. I mean, but really the material from 17 says actually like 2 billion people possibly being censored and stuff. So who even knows? But just that there should be restitution, that there should be some way of balancing that soon, so that we can stick to the man and take the man down. That's just one more way, you know?
This is so cool.
Yeah. So
it's badass is what it is.
It is. I didn't think it would be happening this soon, but I don't know how long of a process it is. We'll see. But I already sent in my, because they say to like, there's a spot on the website. Oh, it's called, I think, takedownbigtech.org. I'll figure out exactly what it is, because I did it yesterday or the day before, and I will put it in the show notes also. So friends, if you guys have been shadow banned or like censored or accounts deleted, you know, through Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, any of that, then you definitely want to go to this website, put in your email address, and it asks you to share a little bit of your story of censorship. So why not? Why not? Okay, so that was, we talked insubordination, punishment, electronic harassment, and voice-to-skull technology. Okay.
No idea.
Okay, guys, so voice-to-skull technology is some kind of crazy shit. It is also known as voice of God technology as well, I believe. And so basically, they have electronic tools where they can almost like insert a voice into your head. So, in your head. So, and you...
Hello?
It's...
We're on a delay.
But did you also notice that happened? But did you also notice that happened as soon as I said...
Wow.
Hello?
Hello.
Okay, guys. So...
Wow.
Okay, that was a really interesting little experience. So I don't know what all you guys just got of that, but we were just starting to talk about voice-to-skull technology, and our electronics just went really interesting as soon as we started talking about something really, really important, which is very bizarre. Okay, so I almost lost my place there. So voice to skull technology, also known as voice of God technology at sometimes, is basically where they have some type of electronic technology that can insert thoughts or voices, statements, things like that into your own head. And so often this is used with people that are already very, I'm going to say energetically broken. I don't know if that's the right term at all. But even like for a lot of the people that have kind of done the mass shootings and things like that, these are often people that have like, often like some type of military background, but they're not in the military anymore. And they often have a background of being on a lot of antidepressants, antipsychotic drugs, things like that. So there's already like mental things happening, or there's even like backgrounds of MK Ultra and things like that. And so they've got this voice of God or voice to skull technology where basically they can like subliminally send you messages and thoughts to be like, you got to go kill all those people, or you know, like those like crazy types of things, like that. And so it's super, super dark stuff. And even like about 6 years ago, I was like almost romantically involved with somebody that was like ex-military, but also like ex-talk show host and like some weird stuff. And he was telling me that that when he was back in the military, he remembers having these dreams, but they weren't actually dreams, where he's like waking up in some type of like medical office and they were doing something to his brain, like some type of like surgery type things, but there's only like glimpses of memories, you know? And then I also have friends that have been like, you know, whether I can't remember if it's like military or Marines, where they're like, yeah, they told us that we had to take these injections, but they wouldn't tell us what they were, you know? So there's just some really sketchy stuff. But anyways, with the voice to skull, it's like they can literally implant thoughts and messages into your head. And often the people that they do this to, these are people that won't recognize that these are not their own organic internal thoughts. These aren't thoughts that are sourced from within. These are things coming at you this way. And really though, like for a lot of us light workers, we get attacked. Like when you're a bright light also, we can get attacked in a lot of different ways. And I mean, I've been in states before where it's like, I've been kind of crazy and lost my shit. And you know, where this thought or this idea comes in at you, and I can clearly feel that it's something outside of me trying to come in this way versus something organically sourcing from me. Does that make sense? Yeah, so that's some crazy technology that they can use on people. Very crazy stuff.
Yeah.
And I guess, I mean, you could even call frequency torture with that too. You know?
Right. Yeah, and there's also frequency torture can also be, for instance, like a group in a stadium, a room or whatever can be hit with a certain frequency and all of a sudden everybody is sick. Oh. And I remember hearing about this in another country where a woman was like, don't send your kids to school because this is what they're going to do. They're going to put your kids in there. You're not going to be able to go in there unless you take the jab to get your own kid.
Oh.
Because they're all sick. Well, they're not sick. They hit them with frequencies that make them sick. It was enraging.
You know, for all of us to see the warfare that is being used against us, just we the people, it is so insane. So insane. Oh, and also lastly on that frequency torture, like they could be sitting outside of your house, like if they have a reason to take you out, they can easily be sitting outside of your house. They've got basically like these frequency guns that if they've got thermo imaging, they can see where you're asleep in your house. They can point these these frequency guns at you and actually basically cause you to have a heart attack.
Yep.
When I was getting really deep into this stuff, I found out that if you get when I was in the paranoid stages of awakening, when all of this was just like happening a year and a half ago, if you take like a cookie sheet and if you get some of that double-sided bubble foil and put it onto the cookie sheet, like I had this beside my bed for a while because of paranoia, because if you felt something attacking your heart like that, you could literally hold it up and like literally like save your life at that time. Isn't that crazy?
Wild.
And guys, I don't like have that degree of paranoia anymore. But you know, when you're first waking up to stuff, I know you've had a deep amount of paranoia at times too, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
One more thing about frequency torture too is, you know, with the jab and with other things regarding 5G, getting under your skin. What I read about was, so the towers will emit a frequency that prevent you from sleeping. Like if your body sends out the message you're about to fall asleep, then it hits you with a frequency to wake you back up so that you don't ever get a real sleep.
Right. And then what does that do to your nervous system
Right.
and your mind and everything,
Yeah.
right? When it's like, oh my God, I haven't had a real sleep.
Right.
So you never get into the deep.
Right, right. So you don't have your mind reset. You don't have your body reset. You don't do all that work that you do when you're asleep. Your body doesn't get to do it. That's crazy.
Oh, it's so crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's so crazy. Okay, what is our next section?
All right. So lust, fear, despair,
Lust, fear, and despair.
inflated expectations, sense of inadequacy, insurmountable odds.
It's a lot. So right there with like the lust, I mean, in future we will do an episode on the sexual misery programming, but lusting in this world, whether you're lusting after the Instagram folks or lusting, like lust is so dangerous. Lust is so dangerous. So wherever we're feeling ourselves lust, I really think that we, like most of us, have deep inner work around stuff like that. Yeah, what all do you want to speak to within that?
Well, inflated expectations, I mean, I think that we don't realize that we have expectations when we have expectations. I think that, because we have that, it should be this way kind of, mind talk that goes on.
Like almost like entitlement or?
Yeah, but just like a societal norm. So because everybody should be this way or whatever. So there's that societal norm. And, so when you really look at your expectations, if you really get honest about your expectations, you will probably crack yourself up. Because to me, it's like, really? I have that expectation on either myself or somebody else. I did some of this work with expectations with my ex-husband. And I was like, golly, I mean, what? I mean, who do I think he is? Some sort of my puppet?
When you
know what I mean?
actually look at
When
all of the things that you actually,
Right.
when you actually take the time to look at them.
Right, and
'Cause
you
we
just
don't
let
normally
it
look
flow.
at that.
Right. Because we, in my mind, it's like we typically think that those are just social norms, or it should be this way. He should be able to know how I feel, right?
You
It's
shouldn't
very
have
much-
to. You shouldn't have to say what you need
I know.
and say what
Yeah.
you feel.
So then what does that do to relationships? What does that do to any relationship? I'm not just talking about a romantic relationship. It's friendships, it's business relationships, it's, all relationship. And then a sense of inadequacy, that to me, again, is another collective program where we're all, if you took like all your mind talk when, and you just really laid it out there and looked at it, you would probably get, I'm not good enough somewhere in there.
Or multiple places in there.
I'm stupid, I'm not good enough. But I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy is like an underlying
Or like I should
insidious-
be different.
Yeah.
Right? I should be different than I am.
Right. And then and then if you say I should be different, basically because so you keep drilling down, it's I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy of being successful. I'm not worthy of being whatever, loved. That's a big one for a lot of people. People don't realize how worthy they are innately. So that programming has been put in, that sense of inadequacy. We compare our bodies, we compare our lives to everybody around us.
Everything. We compare our partners. We compare everything. And to me, that one, like because like you just said, it's a program. Because we are all more than adequate to be a human. To be a human and to be worthy of all good things and love and all the freedoms and everything. It's like that is inherently our birthright because we are souls and bodies on a gorgeous planet. But the program of inadequacy, I also see that as like a huge cutoff from God. Like if they can program us to know that we're inadequate, then it's like right there. It's like no, we're made in God's image, right? Because if we already feel inadequate, then I don't know how to explain that well.
It's the separation program.
Yeah.
That we're separate.
Yeah.
That we're separate from God. That we're separate from each other. That we're separate from nature.
Yes. Big on all of that.
But we're not. We're one.
Exactly.
I am you and you are me.
And that's it.
Yeah. insurmountable odds. You know, I can't do it. I mean, we use negative language without even realizing it, and we'll get more into that later on down the road. But I mean, can't you see? I mean, I'm already using a negative, you know, so it's so interesting. But insurmountable odds, you know, things can seem so daunting. I mean, I have faced that many times. It's so daunting. And that just holds you in place. Well, there's no way in hell I could do this, so I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing.
Oh, totally. And that, to me, also goes in alignment with the idea of death by 1,000 paper cuts. You heard of that term before?
Speak more.
Okay, so death by 1,000 paper cuts, and like I almost feel like I've experienced that, like because I was well set up in Canada, had a life, everything, but you know, divorce makes you make some big changes, and you know, coming to America and like literally starting from scratch, and suddenly for the first time in my life being like a poor person and having nothing, but then like all of the the odds felt insurmountable, where it's like, and so the idea of death by 1,000 paper cut is like, oh, this didn't work out for me. Oh, that didn't work out for me. Oh, these bills or these
Gotcha.
these parking tickets to these. This didn't work out to, oh, this bill from the vet, and then this bill from the dentist. And do you know what I mean? It's like all of these little things are just like little paper cut, little paper cut, little paper cut. And we know how paper cuts feel, but then it feels like there's just so many little paper cuts in my life that it's just like does that make sense?
Yes, it makes
like it's just
total
all
sense.
of these tiny things as they build up. It's like we become hopeless. We
Yes.
become disenfranchised. We become just almost unable anymore to continue in certain ways.
Yeah.
And I think that has to do with the 9-to-5 grind, with us being sleep deprived, with us, like all of the things that we're talking about.
So well said. So well said.
Oh, through experience. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh gosh, we're on the last couple.
Okay, guys. So these are great and really interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so just 3 of them left.
Okay.
You go for it.
I'm not sure how to say this, how it's pronounced. Wetiko, Wetiko, and I wrote down a couple of definitions. So it equals a mind virus. So the virus of selfishness, according to Native Americans.
So it's a Native American word.
It's also a Cree word, and then there's another word, another place it comes from, but I couldn't pronounce, so I didn't write it down.
Okay, cool. Go on.
Okay. Covertly operates through the unconscious blind spots in the human psyche, rendering people oblivious to their own madness and compelling them to act against their own best interest. I got that from penguinrandomhouse.com.
Compelling us to act against our own best interest.
Mm-hmm.
And you guys know that we do that all the time,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's behavioral addictions, chemical addictions, like whatever it is, you know, like we all are shooting ourselves in the own foot, and that's what that is, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it's calling it a virus or a spirit?
Both. It's called it both. And then here's another one, a word for a cannibalistic spirit that is driven by greed, excess, and selfish consumption. And that came from cosmosjournal.org.
So this has got to be a older term. This isn't a new thing if these indigenous cultures have been using this as a term for a spirit, right?
Mm-hmm. And it's something that just came into my awareness just doing some of the research with the deep state mapping. I was like, what the heck is this? And then I looked, and it's a parasitic thing, a parasitic, energetic, cannibal mind virus is what one of the formats said.
Parasitic, energetic, cannibalistic
mind virus.
Mind virus. Parasitic, energetic, cannibalistic mind virus. Holy shit.
So I never even heard of the word.
Neither
I
did
never
I.
heard of it at all before.
So then for us to look at that, where do we see that? So it's parasitic, energetic. So it's an energetic thing, but it's cannibalistic, which means it's going to probably help devour ourselves and others, right? Of our same species, if it's cannibalistic. And then mind virus. Wow. For me, to me, that right there would be like the energy or entity or spirit behind the whole addiction matrix, the whole parasitic matrix. You mentioned selfishness and greed also in that, right? That's so interesting. I want to find out how ancient is that spirit, or like how long has it been spoken of? That's so interesting.
Yeah.
Does anything else come to mind for you with that?
No, no. I found it on one of the other maps, and then it ended up being here too. So it was linked to all kinds of other things. So we can go into it in another show,
Yeah,
for
if
sure.
we learn more, that's
Yeah,
really cool.
Yeah, yeah.
That's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. A telepathic intrusion. What do you have thoughts on that one?
No, I don't. I mean, we've kind of alluded to it several times.
Yeah.
But this is where I really wanted, with your experience with the ES materials, to speak to these two last items.
Okay. So telepathic intrusion and the psychic jamming. Where in my mind, like noting the ES materials quite well, that takes me to an understanding that it's like we're all at a certain frequency, right? And our frequencies, we're either going to be syncing up together, and we're going to be, that's what we call in phase, where it's like my vibration, my frequency that I'm emitting is in phase with yours. That's why you and I, it's like we're very coherent together. We feel comfortable together. We're feeling safe together. We're having this back and forth that energetically is easeful. There's grace to it. There's intelligence to it. There's compassion to it, right? Versus we see other people that we will be out of phase with them, where it's because like their frequency is not working with our frequency. Like if somebody stepped in right now and they're really occupied by this Wetiko or that cannibalistic virus mind parasite that we were just talking about, it's like immediately you're going to feel like this separation, or like I don't feel comfortable here. That's more so like an out of phase frequency. And so basically, because like we all have DNA that emits an electromagnetic signal, kind of like we were talking about earlier, that we are electromagnetic beings. Well, they can electronically, like using all of these different forms, interfere with us and basically jam up our own frequency, if that makes sense. So like there could be, and I've felt this in my own relationship, and I'm sure in plenty of other marriages and in all forms of relationship, but we can actually be influenced by dark things around us or their technologies, their EMFs and their ELFs, to actually jam up the frequencies inside of us and between us, so that we're actually like, instead you and I are like in phase and stuff, but let's say if there was some type, or like if somehow we're negatively affected by some electronic stuff, it's like we might start just feeling out of phase and like at each other and different expectations, and it's like their psychic jamming technologies can basically go in and create a whole bunch of interference within the way that we're synchronized together. And with our partners and everything. But then when we see it on like a larger scale, like thinking, all of us humans, we're all growing, we're all learning, we're all loving, we're all at different stages, we're all, healing and hurting and all the things. But if they can be electronically harassing us, but with the EMFs and with the ELFs, then they can actually jam up the signals that our DNA is emitting. And then suddenly it's like all of us as humanity, in general, will start acting more incongruently together. We will not have this coherent energy. We're going to have this incoherent energy. It's like we're going to be at each other more, not flowing with each other more, and then also coming down to, again, what injections do to us, but they stop our DNA from being able to appropriately signal like each other's DNA, if that makes sense. And that's also one reason why when they inject us with things in there, often there's DNA from other mammals, whether it's monkey or bovine, chicken, things like that. And so when you're putting another species' DNA into your own bloodstream, then your DNA no longer knows how to appropriately signal in the way that it's supposed to, because our DNA is, it's the most intelligent thing on the planet. It is the planet, but that it works in a certain way. And so with their jamming technologies, basically they're jamming the frequency between us, they're jamming up our coherence, or they're jamming up the energetics of everything. Did that make sense? Yeah
Great.
Okay.
Thank
you.
And
so telepathic intrusion, psychic jamming, I would say like all of that's the best that I could speak to it right now.
That's great.
But it's how they jam us up, so that we're all nasty with each other and fighting with each other. And like, how much of our issues that we experience personally, interpersonally, how much of it is just all this shit? Excuse my language. How much of it is all this shit?
Right.
What if almost all of our problems is all this shit?
Right.
And so when this shit is taken down, then who are we?
Yeah. Our divine essence.
Right? Right, guys?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, that was a good list.
That was an
That's
amazing
a really
list.
good list.
Yeah.
Is there anything else on there that's important for you to add to?
Not on the front list.
Oh. Guys, we got 50 more things on the back. just joking, we don't. Okay. Okay, yeah?
I would really love for. Okay, so what you want to speak to that?
You explain it.
Okay.
As I adjust my eyes to see the tiniest writing.
It's the tiniest writing. I cannot, even if my readers are on, I still cannot see it. But there's these wonderful questions that are on the back of this that can prompt some thoughts about what we just laid out for you.
Yeah.
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 And it took us down another rabbit hole.
Oh, true.
We were looking for the source of it.
Okay, so first off, I
interesting.
love your readers. Guys, I've never worn readers before because I've never thought I needed them, but it turns out these are great. Okay, so this was written by the gentleman who made the deep state map,
Right.
right? Okay. Here we go, guys. So this food for thought, however it hits you, and always with all things, we should have said this at the beginning of the episode because we always do, but of all of this, take what is great for you right now. Take what fits. Everything that doesn't fit, just leave it, and it's all good. Okay, so where is the focus of your attention going? What is your intention? Do you allow the object of your attention to be dictated by the rabble-rousing of the mass media? Is there a rule written somewhere stating what the media presents as important must also be considered important to you and mulled over ad nauseum in every conversation of your personal life? Oh, that's so interesting. How anti-establishment is it for your primary focus to be always countering the official narrative? Will conversations laying waste to the media's sloppily crafted lies ever pave the road to a better civilization? Why does a dog chase its tail? Have you read The Protocols of the Elders of Zion? Knowing the game of the media, will they ever steer us in a direction whose opposite leads anywhere useful? The media will gladly send you off on whore's errands to the left and right when you should be looking upward. Oh, that one's good. Yeah. Look beyond. Look away from the MK Ultra device. Look away. Look to your higher self, your deepest interest, to the practical means of improving your own life. Let that be your focus. How many times can you prove the media to be a complete charade before you realize how much time you have wasted? Time is precious, and use it wisely. That's a good that's amazing food for thought.
Right.
Amazing food for thought.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, we hope that this episode has been really good for you all.
Yeah.
I'm sure that, there's probably so much of this stuff was probably new to a lot of our viewers. So, we hope that we're like the graceful ladies planting seeds in your mind and your heart, and again, like we're never coming at this from a place of like, be afraid. We're like, nah, be informed, be empowered.
Yes.
And with the energetic synthesis material, she states that, these things have a lot of control over us, but as soon as you listen to this episode of this podcast and you know more about this stuff, no, really just as soon as you're aware of all of these different tactics that we've gone through today, it ceases to have so much power over us. So the game really has to turn into how do we make ourselves better and clearer, right? And like, this episode, like you stated, this is not an episode about solutions. This is an episode about awareness. But if we are to offer a solution, it's learning how to live in a pure and open heart, or learning how to heal and purify and open the heart, and then living there, right? Yeah. What else do you think?
It is about your own inner work.
Yeah.
Go inside, look at what's all this means to you, and then how you can come forward in your life anew. with an open heart, compassion for yourself, compassion for others. So yeah, it's heavy duty stuff.
Oh, it's very heavy duty.
Yeah.
And if your eyes are just opening to this and it's like, oh, this is a lot to understand. And, oh, okay, I got to live in my heart and whatnot. Like also understanding that this is the stuff that's about to be disclosed to all of humanity.
Right.
So this isn't any longer a thing of like, oh, we're just, we're all the ones that are learning about this. And like, yes, but really we're on a disclosure timeline where disclosure is going to happen, complete disclosure about all things, which we don't even know what that means right now.
Right.
So we're all as humanity going to have to get onto this bandwagon.
Yep.
But it's it's what's got to happen. It's the only way.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. How do you feel about this episode? This was fun.
It was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so important.
Mm-hmm. I never even really knew about most of these maps until you brought them to my attention. And this episode today was Kimberly's idea, and I love that this is what you chose, because I think that this is so imperative for more people to understand right now.
Yeah.
Because understanding these components is like an integral piece of actually taking back your power, because we can see suddenly what's actually influencing us and what is the intent of that, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. I was so drawn to this map. And also just, I said what the website was, and we'll put the link in the show notes, deepstatemapping.com. I found it a long time ago, when I first started Awakening, but I didn't start looking at it because the print is really tiny in some cases. I couldn't see it. But oh my gosh, the information is mind-blowing. And like some of it is like, I got this a year ago, this packet a year ago, and like I'm seeing that stuff come to fruition now. It's not like predictive, but it's linking all these things together that just aren't in our awareness yet. Mm-hmm. And now they're coming, to our awareness, but they were already on this piece of paper, which blows my mind.
Because now you're looking at these papers you got a year ago, and you're like, oh shit, it's all there.
Oh yeah, and it links all these things, and there's several maps. I believe there's some free downloads, but they've been kicked off social media several times. So yeah, and when you go in to look at some of these maps, you'll probably recall seeing some of them in some Instagram posts, like just little pieces of them, but not like the whole map.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Like for your own interest, it is worth. You can see them in full online.
In some cases, I don't know if all of them are available, but you can purchase the downloads.
Okay.
Yeah,
oh, okay.
But some of them are free.
Oh, awesome. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, like it is worth checking out, because when you really start looking at these maps, especially the ones that we have like on the wall back here, it's phenomenal. The mind and nervous system of the person that made them, must be very, very aligned and connected, Yeah. It's, really amazing stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else that you want to talk about on this episode before we let these wonderful humans do whatever they're going to do next?
No, I'm just really grateful that we get to do this.
Right? Mm-hmm. How's your new day job?
It's exciting. Yeah, this is the job that I was meant to do.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Very happy that you're here with me, and I'm very happy that I'm here with you.
Yeah, same.
Good. Okay, well, everybody, we're going to see you, of course, in the next episode. We've got amazing episodes planned out. We're not going to let you know yet what the next one is, though, but it's going to be really, really good stuff. And as always, what do we want them to do? Number one.
Drink water.
Yeah.
Clean water.
Yes.
Structured water.
Yes. I mean, in these days, truly, water protects our DNA. So get your water game on, and whatever quality of water that you're drinking, upgrade it. If there was ever a time to upgrade it now. And we're saying that from a place of ascension, a place of literally that some of the greatest work right now is us actually getting these bodies aligned for what is happening and what is coming, right? Mm-hmm. So let's drink our water, and let's be really kind to ourselves and kind to one another. Yeah. So thank you all for being here with us, and also thank you for your courage and discipline to find light and know light and be light and seek truth in these days. Yeah. Truly, we're grateful that you all exist. We're
Yeah.
very, very grateful. Okay. So huge, huge love to all of you. And we'll see you next time.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye.